Thanks for tuning in to the Rodeo Wagon Podcast with Marcus Mast. If you like this podcast, make sure you go and support our great partners over at Bluegrass Engravings, Sombrero Brands, Ranch Life, and Cosmic Cowboy Productions. Man, what have you been up to? It's been a minute.
It's been kind of different life for us, I guess. We've been trying to live a normal life, I guess, so to say. As most, I guess, our normal life is different than most people's actual normal life. But I guess this is what normal life is called, I guess.
Yeah, no joke. I'm far boat from you. I've been out since, I had freaking surgery on my ankle in June. And then second bull back, I freaking destroyed my shoulder. So now I'm back. I'm be out until June again.
Dang. Yeah, it's kind of, a lot of people call it a normal life, but it's a boring life, in my opinion.
I'll tell you what, I'm not so sure that my wife's a fan of it.
Yeah, I'm starting to think mine ain't either.
Like, what do you do when you have somebody that's, used to traveling and competing every weekend, and then all this cold turkey just...
Yeah, no, we're actually really busy, but it's a different kind of busy, I guess.
Yeah. It's a different kind of busy on the weekends for sure.
Yeah, I've been, weekends actually kind of been my easy times lately. I mean, I've been judging a couple bull ridings, a couple fraternities here and there, but besides that, we haven't been going to rodeos, or any bull ridings if I'm not judging, just to hang out.
Right.
So if I'm not judging, normally we're just sitting at home for the weekend, or we'll go out for dinner or something. And yeah, weekends ain't too overly busy for me anymore.
Yeah, I graduate in May. So I feel like my weekends are like heavy schoolwork,
Right.
So when I'm traveling, that's generally what I did anyway. But when you're driving, 14 hours, or, you're on a plane or whatever, there's so much time that schoolwork, that's when I did it. But now it's like obstacles, like now I'm at home, so I have my kids and stuff and I want to spend time with them. But that's like the time that I'm doing schoolwork, and it's kind of just balancing that.
Yeah. Yeah. You got her. Yeah, we're still kicking along.
What do you
slowly but surely.
What do you mostly do, like, during the week? Are you working? I assume that Marcus Mast is working.
Yeah, I'm actually working lately. I've been working my tail off here lately. I still work part-time in the RV factory, and which their RV factories are really slow right now. Most places are working 3 days a week, and they're where I've been working at. I've worked there for the past 5.5 years now. Been basically a part-time guy ever since I started there.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can't go ride bulls, I can work. So, but most of the times we start at 5 in the morning, and then most of the times we're done by 9-10 o'clock in the morning. So you work 4 or 5 hours a day for 3 days a week. It's a little bit of income, but it's not too overly great. So I've been doing some livestock hauling, doing some judging, and doing a bunch of stuff, like just kind of little knick-knack stuff, trading some hay and trading some horses, just try and make a little bit of money.
What's your back been like as far as that part? Like, recovering enough to where, like, you're starting to be able to work more and take more of a load, as far as all of that?
Yeah, I actually told my wife yesterday. I said, I think I started getting fatter now that I've been able to work. Since I took my brace off and actually been able to do something. I feel like I've gained more weight. I don't know if I put more muscle back on, or if I just get more fat back on.
Well, you probably put a lot more muscle back on.
Yeah, I had the brace on for 4 months and couldn't really do nothing. So I lost a lot of muscle. I probably gained some fat on it too without, when I lost the muscle, but been able to get back kind of to it up. And I got a stock contractor that lives about an hour south of me that I've been helping him quite a bit. He's got 70 head of bull calves, 80 head of bull calves that we went through for the first time here a couple weeks ago. And we've been busy working them. Got about 55, 60 head of heifers that we got to go through yet that we haven't gone through. And he does a lot of livestock hauling, dairy cattle, whatnot. So I've been helping him with that a lot. The hauling cattle part, I've been doing that for him. About 2 weeks after I got hurt, once I was actually, a lot of the pain went down from my back where I could comfortably drive around. I did a lot of livestock hauling for him. And yeah, still just kind of still working for him quite a bit, I guess.
1 second. My children are about to break in here and do some crazy. Give me 1 second. There we go. That's parenthood right there. My van, you're getting tires put on, so
yeah.
So we're doing it in the bedroom today.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I could imagine. Look, I've obviously had a handful of surgeries, but the back has never been really something that I've had to go through. I imagine that's probably a decently difficult recovery process just because of how much you use your freaking back. It was your neck though. How much does that? Yeah, go get a little bit into that because I'm not even completely sure how all of that works and the vertebrae and all of that.
So it was actually the L1, which is actually my lower back. I mean, the way I landed, a lot of people actually thought I broke my neck, but it was actually my lower back. So it's basically the L1. I guess I don't know for sure the medical term on what the actual name is for the L1, but it broke the wing off of it. So, it's got a wing on each side of it that connects all the muscles and ligaments and stuff to the spine, and it broke one of those wings off. And it's basically, so the L1 is basically in the spot where, when you do all your lifting and stuff, if you just bend over and lift something up, you feel the strain on your lower back. That's where I broke it.
Okay.
So it's one of those things where, I mean, I had basically wasn't supposed to pick anything up for about a month or two.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a 5-pound weight limit restriction. And it's been, it was definitely something to get used to. You're trying to do something or whatever, and then you got your back brace on, you go to pick something up, and it's like, oh, shit, I ain't supposed to pick this up. I ain't never had this in my life before.
Especially 5 pounds, because that's not a lot. Like,
no, it's not.
You can't pick your kid up.
Yeah.
Any of them.
And those first 2 weeks was rough. I mean, just them. I mean, I couldn't even hardly sit in a chair. My back hurt so bad, and it was like when I hit the ground, I knew immediately, or I was pretty 99% sure something was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what. The only thing that threw me off of my back being broken was I sat up right away, but I couldn't get past the sat up part. I couldn't get all the way up. Like, it was like all my muscles in my body just clamped together and wouldn't let me get on up. It hurt so freaking bad. But yeah, I mean, J-Dub asked me, he's like, is your back broke? I'm like, I mean, I can't say for sure, but I'm like 99% positive it is. And then, I mean, luckily for me, not that having a broken back is lucky, but luckily for me, it was just one of the wings broke off. And I've had a lot of guys tell me, oh, well, I had that same thing happen to me and I was back in 3 weeks. And, now for me, I'm off for 6 months already.
Right.
Um, and I kind of gave Tandy a little bit of shit about that. And he said, well, yours is broken different than what a lot of guys is. He said, a lot of people, if they break their wing off, they'll break it like, so say the disc is here and then the wing is coming off of here. He said a lot of people break it down here halfway down the disc or
Okay.
halfway down the wing. And I broke it right as it comes off of the disc. So it said there's no bone marrow there. So it takes a lot longer to heal that back together than it does if it has bone marrow in it.
Interesting.
Shit, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. All I can do is listen to what he says and hope he ain't feeding me a crock of shit.
Yeah, for sure. Heck, I mean, Tandy, he probably. When I got this last, so this shoulder surgery I had another doctor do here in St. Louis, and I'm really happy with it and really happy with how he did. But that was probably the biggest thing that made me nervous was not going to Tandy. And it just didn't make any
Right,
sense to go to Tandy because my insurance was gonna just pay for it all if I went in network, and
right,
Baylor is out of network, so it that was kind of the rock in a hard place. Like you want to go to Tandy
right,
for everything, but when they're like, "Hey, it's gonna be this much cheaper," then it's like, well,
right,
probably gonna go
right.
that route. But
Yeah.
what? So I guess like you get into the lower back and you talk about that. What does that recovery look like? Are you doing like? Do they have you doing a lot of like hip stuff and like as far as PT and stuff?
I mean, so far I'm only doing small workouts. A lot of just, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say a lot because I'm not doing a lot. I'm just doing small stuff right now. But
Yeah.
most of it is just core strength, trying to build my core strength back. And, I mean, that's that lower back, I guess a lot of it comes from your core strength. So, and with me wearing that brace, I lost a lot of that core strength,
Yeah.
core muscle. So I got to work on that, building that back up. And I mean, at this point, I'm still not released. Last time I talked with Tandy, he said I'm still trying to come back early, which I wasn't necessarily trying to come back. I mean, I'm ready to be back, but I mean, I'm not going to be able to ride as soon as he releases me. But I
Yeah.
need to, I want to start being able to work out
Right.
full extent and try and get that stuff back. But I was planning on going to Indianapolis this weekend and hopefully find some answers this weekend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Heck yeah.
yeah. So it's just, I mean, right now mostly I'm just trying to do some core workouts until he gives me the go ahead to work more than that if I get the go ahead, I
Go ahead.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's man. The atrophy. Like I'm sure in your back, like the core, wearing that brace. Certainly, you had probably muscle atrophy down your spine, or
Yeah.
the muscles that run on the sides of your spine.
Right.
But I know with my lower back when you talk about that's the pressure when you feel it. I know how like your hips are connected, and I imagine at some point you'll probably be doing stuff that will kind of take pressure off of that. You know.
Right. And I've had, I'm working part time in the RV factory now. So I'm wearing a tool pouch and I've had people ask me if that's been like if it bothers me wearing a
Sure.
tool pouch. And I've for a couple of years already, I mean basically my ever since I've been 19 years old, I've worked either in RV factory, or at least part time in an RV factory, and I've worked back in floors, and that's basically where all the heavy work is done. All the heavy lifting gets done, and they floor guys always wear bigger tool pouches, heavier tool pouches, and I for a couple of years I've always come home with basically raw hips because of my tool pouch being that
Uh-huh.
heavy. So I for a couple of years already I've wore a tool pouch with suspenders.
Yeah. Okay.
And that takes a lot of the weight off of your hips and your lower back. And like there's been days, where I've come home from work and I'm sore, but I told my wife, I said, I've had lower back issues since I don't know how long ago. And I don't feel like, some days when I come home and I sit down for half an hour or so and I get up, I'm stiff as a shit. It's not like it's worse than it was before I broke my
Right.
back. It's
That.
basically the same thing. So I don't feel like it's coming from my back, from my
Sure.
broken back, I guess.
Right. Yeah. So when I busted my ankle up and snapped it in two in June, and I actually was able to get back to work. And my buddy, and you're probably one of the most requested people I've had to come on the podcast, if not the most. And I worked with Malin Schlobaum and a few Amish boys, and he's ex-Amish, and then there's one boy that came from Maine, the other one I think from Ohio, maybe two of them from Ohio, but Maine and
Gotcha.
Ohio. And so I was doing construction with them, and they were green, fresh off the community,
Yeah.
riding bulls. I think Peter, I think he was 2 years maybe that from Amish, and then his little brother was like 4 months out of the community, and they're all riding bulls and doing construction, and that was the first time I'd done like framing houses and all of
Right.
that kind of stuff, and so wearing a tool belt, that was new for me, and that definitely jacked up my back. Definitely know what you're saying. Come home from
Yeah.
work and you're like, man, my body's not used to that. I could see the suspenders. I don't have them, but you say that, and I think I'm probably gonna freaking get some.
They're actually it makes I didn't wear any for a long time just because I was too stubborn, but
Uh-huh.
probably why I got back issues now. A lot of people are going to say, no, it's because you broke your back. No, I had lower back issues before I ever broke my back.
Yeah.
And I mean, and like doing construction, the framework and whatever, you're bent over a lot too.
Uh-huh.
So that's never great on your back either. And I'm sure a lot of that has a part to play in it too. But wearing a tool pouch for 9, 10 hours a day, sometimes 12 hours a day, is definitely don't help anything.
Yeah, not at all. No, for sure.
But
Yeah,
suspenders do make a world of difference wearing a tool pouch.
my cousin, he actually came down, and I don't know if you've met my cousin Kenny, redhead.
Don't
No.
know that I have.
All right. Well, he came down and helped us one week, and he used to um he used to do construction a lot, so he had his tool belt and he brought it down. He had the suspenders on there. So that was the
Gotcha.
first time I saw that, and I did fencing for a good while, building fence, but you don't use a tool belt building fence, so I never
Right.
even freaking had one.
Yeah, they're a lot warmer during the summer. I mean, you'll sweat a lot more during the summer, but they're still a lot nicer to wear those than. I mean, in the summer your hips get a little more raw,
Yeah.
a little lot more raw wearing the tool pouch than they do during the winter. And if you got suspenders, it helps.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
It
definitely
definitely.
could get that. Especially for me, I don't have a freaking butt anyway, and so I have to lock them suckers in just to keep them from freaking, pulling my pants
Right.
up.
Yeah.
uh, what's because I haven't really ever heard your story, and I'm curious about it, and I know a lot of people are, as far as like, what was that like, transitioning, from the Amish, and then like how did you get started riding bulls, and how soon was that? I know a lot of these Amish right now that, I've been talking to are freaking hardworking, good dudes that are fresh off the community. And it's kind of cool to see that they're building a little community outside of it. And I think that's such a
Right.
great way to kind of be introduced into obviously a different culture. And then, the rodeo culture at that, So just curious on that, if you had any tips for some of these guys and kind of what with that process like for you.
Oh, I mean, it was kind of the same thing that probably a lot of those kids down there are. And when I turned 16, I started what they call the Rumspringa,
Mm-hmm.
and I was allowed. I think my mom and dad gave me $15 a weekend to go do whatever I want, plus whatever money I had saved up, before I turned 16, which wasn't a whole lot.
Yeah.
Um, and I started working a job. Didn't pay a whole lot, and my mom and dad got all that money except for what they gave me, which was their allowance. And at first it was $15. I think by the time I was about 16 and a half, they had upped it to $50 a weekend. And I'd work during the week, and whatever money I'd make, they'd get that, and then they'd give me $50 for the weekend to
Okay.
money spend and whatever. And yeah, about the time I was, I don't know. I think actually, I mean, soon after I turned 16, I started going with, you probably remember him, Rich Yoder.
Yeah.
Lives out there in Kansas. He
Uh-huh.
he was riding bulls, and so my oldest brother's actually married to one of his sisters.
Okay.
Um, so we knew each other pretty good, and I started going with him to rodeos and bull ridings during the summer and during the winter, and uh, just a little bit about a month or two before I turned 17, I had been on his ass about, I want to try this too. Take me to practice pen or somewhere where I can get on one. And he calls me up. It was Monday nights. He calls me. I was out doing chores, and we were always supposed to give mom and dad like a day or two heads up if we were going to go somewhere. And I was doing chores. I didn't have no plans to go anywhere. And Rich calls me, and he's like, "Hey, we're going to go to this practice pen. You want to go along?" He said it's just like 500-600 pound steers that he said they're not mean at all. He said we hold their horns and make them turn back, so we have something that turns back. He said they're just little jump kickers and be perfect for you for your first one. So I ran to the milk parlor and told Dad, I said, "You're gonna have to finish my chores because I'm leaving." And needless to say, he wasn't too happy with me, but I told him I'm out, I'm leaving. And Rich told me, he said it's like an hour and a half drive, and we were on the road for about 45 minutes to an hour, and all of a sudden he looks at me and says, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, we're not going to that practice pen after all. We're going to a different practice pool that actually has big bulls." And I said, "Okay, well, that's fine." And we didn't talk much about it, and we went to the practice pen that night, and I had to use all his gear, because I didn't have any gear. And got on a bull, and it was just a little jump kicker, pen hopper that run out across the pen, and was about to the panels, and he just turned, and I just flipped right over his head, and I rode him for about 4 seconds, and I was all excited. I was like, "Let's do it again," but I didn't get on that night again. We were packed up stuff and headed home, and we were on the road for about 10-15 minutes. He kind of looks at me and he says, "I really didn't think you'd actually get on." I said, "Why not? I've told you I've been wanting to try it." He's like, "I know, but I figured these bigger bulls would actually scare you." I said, "No." I said, I don't know why they'd scare me if I've been wanting to try it. I mean, I hadn't never gone to an actual practice pen to watch you guys before. I've gone to rodeos and bull ridings before, and I've been wanting to try it. So I don't know why these practice pen bulls would scare me. And it's like, I just really didn't think you'd actually try it. And then it was probably 3 months later until I got on my second bull, and I got on two that day. Got on two just good little jump kicker bulls. Uh, that was in August or September. And then that next spring, March, April, I bought my Mid-States card, which is co-sanctioned with a lot of IRAs.
Uh-huh.
Used to be a pretty big deal up around these parts, but it's kind of died down some.
Yeah.
And
Seaber's pretty
then,
big up there.
what's that?
Seaber's pretty big up by you
Yeah,
guys.
yeah. And then there was a couple open events that I'd go to, and started riding bulls, what I call full time. And yeah, I tell everybody I wanted to try it back then. I'm still trying it now.
Yeah.
But I've been very blessed with my career as far as injuries. I mean, a lot of people tried to convince me that this past year wasn't my year, that it was just a bad year for me. But in my opinion, I was en route to having the best year I've ever had, best year of my career ever. And it was, it's been 6 months now, but I call it a small setback. I mean, it's part of the career.
Yeah.
I've been very blessed with my career, so how can I sit here and bitch about being off for 6 months now, having one bigger setback? I mean, I've had this, I've been the first year when I got on my first bull was, I think, in 2011. And then the spring of 2012, I believe it was when I started trying to go to bull ridings every chance I could get.
Yeah.
So been doing it for almost 12 years. And honestly, before breaking my back, I've been off for, I think the longest I've had to take off was two months.
Wow. That's actually impressive. That's impressive.
So,
I've had 9 surgeries now. So
I've been very, very blessed with as far as injuries went. I mean, I broke my free hand, and I took like a weekend off of that because I was in a soft cast, so I didn't ride with that. And then after I cut the soft cast off and took the stitches out, I had to do surgery on it. So I ended up having to take the stitches out then, and they put a splint on it. Told me I can't ride until I can get out of the splint. But me and my wife took 2 rolls of vet wrap every night before I'd get to the bull riding. On the drive there, I'd be driving, I'd hold my arm over to her, and she'd roll 2 rolls of vet wrap on my arm. And still to this day, I think most people thought I had an actual cast on my hand. I mean, I even, after I was allowed to, or didn't have to wear my brace anymore, I still wore it just because it was something I got used to.
Right.
And I felt like I rode better with it than I did without it. And, it was that. I took a week off for that and then kept on riding with that. I broke my jaw, and I think I took a month off for that. Broke my pelvic once before, or cracked it, and was too stubborn to go get it checked out. I couldn't sit straight for about a month, but I was too stubborn to go get it checked out. And then a while later, the one time I ended up waking up in a hospital, they told me that they did CT scans, and I recently cracked my pelvic. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's why I couldn't sit straight for about a month. And I've had, just small kind of nagging injuries. I mean, I have not had nothing major until I broke my back. And I can thank the good Lord for that, for keeping his hand over me and watching over me and blessing me every day, I guess.
Yeah, no joke. I've had mine have been a little bit more like major, like getting stepped on kind of stuff where it's like you can't prevent it, but I've been blessed on the nagging part. I really haven't had anything like nagging injury. That probably the nagging injury would have been, I mean, I broke my jaw, but that really wasn't, you don't, it sucks, drinking out of a
Right.
freaking straw all the time and eating out of a
Yeah.
straw, but
Yeah.
probably my fibula. I broke my fibula and snapped it, and I kept riding. That was kind of nagging, but it wasn't like, that was more once you get in the chute, you better be nodding your head because as long as they don't lean on you, it's not really a big deal. But outside of that, I haven't had too much that's kind of on the nagging side. I've been blessed on that point, which again, that's when I've been able to ride, I've been able to at least ride to my potential, not have to deal with that quite as much. But I think
Right.
like my I started when in 2012 and 9 surgeries, and I've had 4 shoulder surgeries, so that's 2 years right there.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, I've had, the first year of team season, I had my right knee at our home event when I rode homebrew. After I rode him, didn't have the greatest get off, and I didn't get away from him as good as I should have. And he stepped on the back of my knee, and he screwed something up on the inside of my knee,
yeah.
and like it was hot to the touch. Like I couldn't hardly touch it, and it felt like somebody was stabbing me with a branding iron right beside my kneecap.
Uh-huh.
And I mean that was always just kind of a pain in the rear end, and uh, we kind of had a thing going that first year of team season that most of our team lived on Banamine that weekend, um, or over the weekends, because we were kind of beat up. But it was something that Banamine. If we took some Banamine or whatever, took some pain medicine, it kind of kick it off for a day or so, and
Right.
we were good. Um, so that was kind of, it's still something that kind of fires up every now and then. It's something that hasn't never really gone away 100% like I feel like it should have. And then my writing hand, I've dislocated my writing thumb. I think 3 or 4 times. I've dislocated it a time or two each way. Where it went down one time and then the next time it went up. And so I just got kind of shit for ligaments in my thumb, and
Um,
that's
do you,
something that
do you take your wrap? Do you see if I can do that. Do you take it like that or do you cross over?
I cross over.
Crossover.
Yeah,
Man,
and,
there's been so many problems. I feel like Dakota Eagleburger, he tore the ligaments. I used to cross over, and then I messed up that ligament right there, and I
yeah.
started going that way, and I never had some issues. Um,
Well, the first time I heard it, when the first time I dislocated, they asked me, and um, I told them, hell, I don't know. I didn't pay that much attention to it. I mean, it's just something I never really paid that much attention to, but I always tried pulling it up.
yeah.
But I mean, once you take your wrap and you got a bull that that ain't standing and squatting in there or something, and you move them around, well, you're probably gonna move your hand around a little bit.
Yeah, right.
And they said, well, you probably had your thumb like this, and then when you went out over the front, your thumb pushed in his back, and it pushed that thumb back. That's why you dislocated it.
Yeah.
So I tried starting to make sure, I always pull it up here and make sure it's up here. Well, then the next person told me, well, that's why you dislocate your thumb, because when you go out over the front, well, it pushes it back like that instead of pushing it back like this. So I don't know left from right on where to put my thumb. At this point, maybe I should just cut it off. I
Cut
don't
it
know.
off.
But no,
That's
I tried to tape it just keep it taped every time I ride, but it's like when it's hot out and I get sweaty, that tape don't stick worth a shit and it kind of
Yeah.
slides around there and gets loose. And then sometimes it don't really help anyway if it is taped. And then I'll tape it. Sometimes I'll tape it for a long time and then it feels really good. Ain't had a problem with it for a long time. And I've had times where I quit taping it and probably didn't ride with it for like a year, tape, or didn't tape it no more, rode with it like that. Never had an issue with it. All of a sudden, one day, boom, ha, here we go again. And then got to start taping it again.
I did that. I felt like the groin wraps were for me. So I went, I wore groin wraps all the time. And then I'm like, you know what? Screw it. My groins feel good. And so I went to a PBR in Colorado. Me and Keith went there and I freaking, I, me and another guy split it. Okay. So we split the win. And when I was coming off, my spur just grabbed hold of the flank rope and it did freaking pull my groin. And so they're the bounty bull. And so they're like, instead of doing a drawing, which one, they're like, we're just going to give you both a bounty bull. And I did. The bull that I drew did go right into that groin. And I freaking did. The second he went into it, I just freaking collapsed on the inside. No strength. He wrecked me out. And after that, I'm like, you know what? I think I'm just going to freaking get some compression shorts and I'm just not going to ever try that again. Hey there, folks. I want to tell you about my favorite cowboy hat brand, Sombrero Brands. As a professional bull rider, I know how important it is to have a hat that not only looks good, but can withstand the toughest rides out there. And that's exactly what Sombrero Brands delivers. Their hats are custom fitted and shaped to perfection, with a level of attention to detail that's hard to find these days. But what really sets Sombrero Brands apart is the fact that they're a family-owned and operated business. Mark and Kendall Holler, the owners, and their daughter Sarah, who's only 13 but already a hat-making prodigy, are all passionate about their craft. They know what it takes to make a cowboy hat that can stand up to anything the rodeo circuit can throw at it. And get this, the founder's grandfather, Polly Holler, was born and raised at South Camp on the 4-6's ranch. These folks have got cowboy blood running through their veins, and it shows in every hat they make. That's why I'm proud to have Sombrero Brands as a major sponsor for my podcast, the Rodeo Wagon Podcast. So if you're in the market for a hat that's tough enough to handle anything the rodeo throws at it, give Sombrero Brands a try. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. What's up, everybody? I'm thrilled to announce a fantastic partnership between the Rodeo Wagon Podcast and Rodeo Life Official. Rodeo Life isn't just a coffee brand. It's a veteran-owned business that epitomizes the principles of hard work, dedication, and perseverance in all their products. As an avid consumer of Rodeo Life coffee, I am proud to align myself with a company that mirrors my values and resonates with our audience. Supporting this veteran-owned business is not only a testament to our shared ethos, but also a way to give back to those who have served our country. This partnership promises exciting content, collaborations, and surprises for all our listeners and the rodeo community. You can anticipate special episodes featuring the Rodeo Life experts and even a chance to win some Rodeo Life merchandise. We look forward to this journey with Rodeo Life and the enriching experience it will bring our audience. Join us as we venture into this partnership, fueled by a passion for rodeo and a great cup of Rodeo Life coffee. Stay tuned for more exciting updates and the amazing things to come from the Rodeo Wagon Podcast and Rodeo Life Official. Make sure you go to rodeolifeofficial.com and check out all their sweet merch. Are you searching for that perfect statement? Look no further than Bluegrass Engraving, where creativity meets craftsmanship. Their specialty lies in creating custom buckles and dip cans, but that's not all. They redefine elegance with an exquisite line of jewelry, and for those who appreciate a little flair, check out their engraved guns collection. At Bluegrass Engraving, they don't just create products, they craft experiences. Visit Bluegrass Engraving today and let them turn your visions into engraved realities. Bluegrass Engraving, where artistry meets authenticity.
And that was something I dealt with the first year of teams as well, was actually when I rode homebrew. I think that was the first time I wore a groin wrap, was that weekend.
Okay.
Or that night, I had to strain my groin muscles pretty hard, and I've never been much for taping or wrapping something. I've never been a big fan of it, and just like my thumb, for instance, I think I dislocated it 3 times before I ever started taping it. That's how stubborn I am on having to tape stuff. And Sports Med finally talked me into wearing a groin wrap. Said, "Let's just put it on and see if it don't help. And if you don't like it, you ain't got to wear it tomorrow."
Yep.
And then I actually wore it that weekend, but I wore it for I think 2 or 3 weekends, and then I took it off again. And knock on this table, because so far I haven't had an issue with it, but I also haven't gotten on bulls in the last 6 months.
Yeah. I feel like for the groin with me, I didn't like the wraps. The compression shorts I didn't mind so much. It felt like, you're just wearing, boxers and stuff. The compression shorts, I've kind of went that direction, and I don't think I'll ever go back to the groin wraps. I felt like
Right.
with the groin wraps, for me to even hold it on my groin, I had to go around my hips. And like,
Yeah.
I'm with you on like, obviously there's certain things like with my knees and stuff, I wear knee braces. But if I can not wear something and, then I prefer, especially like your hips, because if your hips are not being, if your hips aren't
Right.
moving fluidly and they're not reacting quickly, me and you both know what happens when you get on a good bull that's going to jump ahead.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
Oh, yeah. But no, um, yeah, I've just never been a big fan of wrapping shit or taping it, but I guess if it helps, if it helps, it helps. If they talk me into using it and it helps me one time, I'll probably continue using it.
Yeah, and the sports med, especially the PBR sports med, are pretty freaking good. I will say that.
Yeah, 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 for sure.
I like not to be in there, but I also like to be in there.
They take care of you in there for sure.
Yeah, for sure. What I guess it's another thing that I wanted to kind of talk to you about, and it's one thing that, those boys have kind of talked to me a little bit about was like finances and, what does this look like as far as transitioning into being a professional bull rider and what kind of wisdom do you have, especially, your background, it's similar background and coming in and you probably understand a little bit. I can only imagine going from a community like that to the world that we live in outside of those communities. So, in one sense, those Amish communities are great, and I think that one thing I've noticed is even the ex-Amish that are coming out of those communities, they've maintained their faith, and that's awesome, and I think that
Yeah,
that gives them a lot of wisdom on how to be able to handle the overstimulating culture that they're getting into. But the financial
right.
side is probably another unique thing, What's your advice on that?
I mean, that's one of the biggest things, for um, to step into the PBR. When I first started riding bulls, the one, majority of people say, well, if you're a bull rider and you don't want to be a world champ, you're riding bulls for the wrong reason. And the biggest goal I had when I started riding bulls was to make it on tour at least one time. If I make it on tour one time, I'm happy with where I've gone in my career.
Okay.
You make it there one time, it's like, man, I don't know why I can't just stay here. I'm good enough to be here with everybody else. I don't know why I can't keep going. But I think it was, for me, the big part for me to be able to, ride at that level was my confidence. I had a I always struggled pretty hard with my confidence at that level. Having the background that I did was my in my mind. My mind always told me, well, you're not supposed to be a bull rider. You grew up an Amish kid. You weren't born to be a bull rider, and that's something I always struggled with. But on the other hand side, it's God put us in places for a reason, and He gave us the talent and the ability to do certain things for a reason. whether it's, being a leader or, opening people's eyes for what God can do himself. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons, I guess, kind of hard to put into words for me. Um, but that was the big thing, was just being able to believe in myself that I actually did belong
Yeah.
at, and, it's, if you actually just think about it, we're all human beings. There's not one of us on this earth that's better than anybody else. We might be better bull riders, but as a person, as a whole, there's nobody on this planet that's better than anybody else. And we're all here for a reason. We're all here to serve a purpose. And it's just, just finally realizing that God's leading the way. You got to trust in him and just put your faith in him, and he'll take care of you.
Yeah,
And as far as financially, there's times when you struggle. I mean, I'm sure there's that time for any bull rider.
yeah.
And, I mean, there's times when you get to the point where you don't know how you're going to keep going, or you don't know if you're still going forward, or if you're going backward, or if you're going left, or if you're going right. But the big thing, I mean, one of the big things, I guess, for me was, that, a lot of these Amish communities are different, from the Amish out there, the Amish in here, the Amish in Ohio, and there's Amish down south of here, and there's Amish right close to here that are way different than what my parents and my brothers and sisters are.
Okay.
But for me, when I first started riding bulls, my oldest brother was actually probably the biggest hater I had, but it was probably the biggest motivator I had as well. But after about 3 years of me riding bulls, and he figured out that it don't matter what he has to say, I'm going to do what I'm going to want to do. He actually became probably my biggest fan.
That's awesome.
I mean, it was when I first made it on tour the first time back in 18 or 19, I can't remember when it was. He started calling me, like, basically, or when I first started going to the PBRs hard, like every Sunday afternoon or Monday, he'd call me and ask me how I did. And if I'd have to sit there and tell him I bucked off, he'd rip my ass, me like, well, that's not what you're supposed to do, right? Like, you're supposed to freaking stay on. That don't pay the bills falling off. Yeah, no shit. How well do I know this? So, I mean, at first, he was hating on me for riding bulls, and it motivated me to become better. And then once he realized that it don't matter what he's going to do, he kind of flipped and became my biggest fan. And I don't know, I guess a lot of that actually helped me to, I ended up having the support of my oldest brother there to keep me going. And, there's times when you hit rock bottom, and, you got a brother to help you out. Brothers are there for a reason. And there's, then there's Amish communities where you leave the Amish, you don't get to talk to them anymore. Like, you'll go back to their house and they will not talk to you. Mm-hmm. And that's the one big thing that I had versus where, some of those Amish, ex-Amish bull riders don't have. But the biggest thing I can say, I guess, as far as mentally, physically, or financially, even, is for these guys, is just don't give up. Winners don't quit. And I had I had a guy tell me the other day about he's gonna he's gonna quit entering these deals because he always just falls off of just the good ones anyway. But I mean, that's the huge thing for me is you just told yourself you fall off of just the good ones there. So it don't matter if you're going to go back to entering amateur deals or easy, so-called easier bull ridings until you're riding good again and then try and come back and enter those again. Your mind is a very, very powerful thing.
Yeah.
So you told yourself, it might have been 2 months ago, you told somebody else that, well, I just buck off of just these good bulls at these deals anyway. So why do I want to keep entering? I'm going to go back to entering these until I'm riding good again. Then I'm going to go back to entering those. When you come back to entering those, your mind is so powerful. Your mind is still thinking, it's going to go back to thinking this. Well, I just fall off of just the good ones anyway. So what's going to happen? You're going to fall off of those. You're going to keep on falling off of those good ones. But if you don't quit, you keep pushing, you'll eventually ride your way out of it.
Yeah.
But the moment you tell yourself, I'm going to quit doing this because I just fall off of the good ones or I draw like shit every time, or I draw the rankless one in the pen every time. The big thing you told your mind is, I quit. And what's one thing winners never do?
Quit.
Quit. The moment you tell your mind you quit, you got your mind convinced. It's that easy to convince your mind that you're going to quit because your mind wants to quit. But it's a lot harder to create a good habit or a great mentality than it is to create a bad habit or a bad mentality.
Yeah.
It takes, I mean, that's one thing that somebody told me years ago. There's a lot of things this person does that I don't agree with. But the one thing he told me that I do agree with, he told me it takes 21 days to create a good habit. It takes 21 minutes to create a bad habit. I mean, I'm not going to disagree with that because it only takes a little moment to have a bad mindset or make a bad habit, and you go back and you look at what you did and you tell your mind, oh, this is what I did. But you don't tell your mind that I'm not going to do that again. This is what I'm going to do to fix it, right? So you just told your mind, this is what I did. This is what I do. Now your mind is believing all of that.
Yeah.
But to fix that takes a lot longer and it's a lot harder. It's just like looking off of a bull. You look off of a bull and you get bucked off. You go back and you ask your buddies, what did I do? All your buddies say, oh, you looked off. No, I didn't look off. Go watch your video. Oh, I looked off. What are you going to do to fix it? You got to tell your mind right away what you're going to do to fix it.
Yeah.
Or else you're going to create a bad habit. Because if you don't fix it at that point, the next time you're getting on a bull, your mind is already thinking, oh, the last one I looked off. And then what's going to happen on this one? You're going to look off. I get there's a lot of people that got different ideas, I guess, and I don't know. I'm a firm believer in that, and that is what creates bad habits. Is you don't fix it. People don't fix it right away.
I think it's a lot. It's commitment too. So,
Yeah.
it's not just an idea that you think about. Like, you have to be fully committed to doing that.
Right.
Getting in the habit, again, like you're saying, it's super easy to get out of the habit of being fully committed to something. And everybody's gone through this. So if you're listening and you're new, Jose's gone through this. JB went through this at some point. Maybe not. Maybe that's a one guy. I don't.
That's one
Maybe,
exception.
but everybody at some point goes through this. So don't think that, like, if you're going through this, it's like, oh, I can't, I'm never going to be able to reach that level because these guys would never be like that. No, they went through it too. And you have to get in the habit of being fully committed. And if you do mess up one time, knowing that you're going to need to be fully committed to, the next time doing it correctly and building
Right.
that habit. Because look, if you're fully committed and you make mistakes, that's much better than being half in making mistakes. Honestly, if you're half in and you strap one for 88, like, I'd rather a guy, be all in and, just be 84, not even get by one in the long run, like in over and over again. Because that guy that's half in, the consistency is he's going to struggle with that. And
Yeah.
you see guys like that. You see guys that if the bull fits them perfect, they can be half in and it's just going to pick them up every round, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that can almost be a false sense of, I did things right.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
having accountability too, having people around you that are honest with you, like you said, like if you are looking off and you are going through that, like making sure you're traveling with people that are going to point that out to you. Because
Yeah.
one of the hardest things to do is actually to accept that you actually did do that.
Yeah. And I feel like, yeah, now, the world we live in nowadays, there's, especially for like the UTB, a lot of guys are flying from here to there, flying from here to there. There's not near as many guys driving with each other, where you
Yeah.
say so-called traveling partners, you might room with them for that weekend or whatever. But I feel like a lot of that has gotten away from us where, we hold each other accountable for it. And now that's, there's a lot of people, I'm pretty sure there's still a lot of people out there that still don't like the team season after 2 years. I mean, there's a lot of people that changed their attitudes about it and actually started liking it now,
Yeah.
but there's pretty sure there's still a lot of people out there that still hate it.
That's one of the parts though that the
Uh,
team series definitely is helping. It has to
yeah,
help.
I mean that's one of the big things, that we're a team now and we got teammates that hold us accountable, but even better than teammates, we got coaches and managers that hold us accountable for doing shit wrong. And I think it's played a big part in a lot of guys' bull riding already.
I think that this is why the Brazilians were so successful for so long, and the Americans, again, those Brazilians are traveling together.
Yeah, I
You
mean
know,
a lot of them live.
yeah,
I don't know, maybe a 10-mile radius, and all us Americans are scattered all over the United States.
yeah,
And them Brazilians, they practice together, they study bulls together, they hold each other accountable, they travel together and all that stuff. So I mean, you got a good point.
yeah. I'm actually a huge fan of this team concept. There's Look, there's details that everybody's going to be frustrated with, and I think it's important that the riders and probably the coaches too. I'm sure that everybody in a new sport that's completely brand new, like nobody. This is unprecedented. So like it's going to take time for a lot of those kinks to kind of get worked out, and you know,
Right.
I'm confident though that if they continue to hammer down that those kinks will get worked out, and I think it'll be for the betterment of the next generation, hopefully. Right now, it's super hyper focused on making sure everything is working within the team concept, but even in the future, what is this going to look like for skill development? And I'm excited about
Right.
that because look, another thing that the Brazilians have is within that community, they're the skill development that happens, right? And
Right.
Americans are so spread out, like it's you don't have that quite as much. Like I don't know about you, but when I came into the sport, like it was freaking where do you go to learn other than just going and jumping on bulls and like that's what we did. I'd
Right.
go get on 10
I
bulls
mean,
in practice pen.
just like this last weekend, we had, I was at an amateur deal judging it, and I was sitting in there in the office. It was about 5 minutes before they closed books. Um, Man, they got call-ins Mondays, but then if you got your no shows or whatever, they always got a couple guys that want to double enter or whatever. And we had this kid walk in, and he's like, "How much are the entry fees?" And the secretary was like, "What's your name?" And like he had a T-shirt and jeans on, and had no cowboy hat, nothing. I mean, you could tell he wasn't a bull rider. And she's like, "What's your name?" And he said his name, and she's like, "Did you call in?" Because she looked at her list and she didn't see his name, and she asked him, "Did you call in?" And he's like, "No, I didn't know I had to call in." She's like, "Yeah, you got to call in Monday." And he's like, "Oh, I thought you can just show up and get on a bull." And they didn't have their novice guys weren't all showed up yet. And she's like, "Well, if a couple of these guys don't show up, we probably get you in. You got any gear?" And he's like, "Shit, no, I got to borrow everything. I don't have anything yet. I've never been on a bull before." I'm like, "You might want to just walk back out the door and go to practice pen." But a lot of guys like around here, they think you can just go to any bull riding and just walk in and enter it. No, go to practice pen. Get on a couple bulls first, and if you're serious about it, then go get some gear and go enter up. But I mean, granted, their novice pen is. I mean, it's a novice pen. It's just some
Sure.
are jump kickers, some are old turd spinners, but it's an amateur bull ride, and it's not a place to just get on your first bull.
Sure. I'm actually hopeful for the future for that process. I'm hopeful for it. I think
Yeah,
that, in the past we haven't had the technology and the information that we do now and with, the team stuff, I think that that's gonna they're gonna have to start developing, like just like other
right,
sports do, like baseball, you think of, MLB baseball, these guys spend, freaking they're a lot of them are 25 before they even get into the big leagues, and they're spending 7 years in this process, and honestly, even it's even younger. I mean, they're developing these kids from the time they're 8 years old to prepare them for a level, that they're gonna face
right.
when they're. And I think that's the next step within this, industry is how can we better prepare the youth coming up to be able to more smoothly grow into that and not be like, me at 18 years old. You were older when you got in and all of a sudden you're just freaking jumping into, probably bulls that are above, your skill level and you haven't developed either physically or, you know,
Right.
uh, within the skill to be able to handle it.
Yeah, yeah. I was, pretty sure I was just turned 19 when I entered my first PBR, and like I had just moved out to Kansas with Rich and Tim, and Rich told me there's a PBR in Guthrie, Oklahoma that he's going to enter if asked me and Tim if we want to go too. And I was like, shit, yeah. I was like, enter me, put me in. If I get in, I'll go. If not, I'll come hang out. Not having the slightest clue about this event and nothing. And I don't think I even knew about it or even really cared about it the day I was there. But I found out sometime later that was actually a classic. And like Long John was there, and a bunch of them big name classic bulls that they were. I think Pearl Harbor was there. They had a couple, of them. No, it wasn't Pearl Harbor. A couple of them big time that ended up being world champion contender bulls in the next couple of years were at that
Yeah.
at PBR. And one of my good friends actually got on Long John, or wasn't a good friend back then, but a couple of years later I got to know him and traveled with him a couple of times, and I found out that he actually got on Long John at that same event that was my first PBR. But yeah, I mean, I got basically thrown to the wolves. I mean, I have been riding bulls for about a year and a half when I went to my first PBR, and not knowing that I really had no business there.
Sure.
And there's even like there's guys up here that like they won't go to a whole lot of bull ridings throughout the year. And then, you got Grand Rapids, and it's up here north where not a lot of guys, a lot of guys got to fly up here, drive 10, 12 hours to come up here. And what time of the year is it every time? During the winter when it's snow. And so, you always got people that their flights get canceled and they can't make it or something. There's always alternate spots fill up, and these guys had entered it, and they enter PBR for the one time they're during the year. And it's like, guys, you need to go home and just go to the amateur bull riding and work on getting better. But on the other hand side, that's how you get better, is by getting on better bulls. But it's not by going to the PBRs or going to the velocities or whatever. It's go home, go to your local practice pen, or find a good practice pen that has those better type of bulls. Where you can get on those better type of bulls and start, instead of dumping $180 into an event that you are like 99% positive you're probably not going to ride your bull because you don't have experience riding that caliber of bulls.
Yeah.
So, but I think the future is looking a little brighter again than it has the past couple of years. I mean, there's a lot of young kids coming that have a lot of talent, have a lot of ability, and I don't know how the kids wise are looking down there, but up here they got a couple little miniature bull riding associations started up here to where they can help build up the young kids now. So that's the one big thing that back when I started riding, they didn't have none of that, where they had the miniature bull ridings up here.
Yeah.
Not that I could have gotten on mini bulls back then anymore. Anyway, you never heard of miniature bull riding up around these parts.
Yeah, not even here in Missouri. We didn't.
Right.
Heck, I wanted to, when I first started, I really wanted to do saddle bronc, and I was too broke to afford one of the saddles, and there was nowhere to learn. And so then I found out that they did at that time, which there's not a whole lot now, but at that time there was some practice pins around for bull riding, and they're like, you can just borrow stuff, and I'm like, well, heck, then I'm in. So, so that's kind of how it started for me. But look, there's certain spots, like you look at skill development and stuff. We're not talking about the John Crimbers of this world that are, there is a group of young generation that's being bred up in the right atmosphere, and skill development is just a natural part of the process. I'm not so concerned about that. It's really the people that want to get into this sport that are not from this sport. Like I'm the only person in my entire family from all the way back that ever got into rodeo. Probably the same for you. Yeah.
Same here.
It's a different process learning the sport when you come into that than if you grew up, and you were riding calves and sheep and calves and steers, and you went through that whole process, and you were riding around the right people.
No, actually, I shouldn't say I'm the only one because actually, I think the reason my oldest brother was my biggest hater is he actually did ride bulls for a year.
Did he? Okay.
He and so me and my oldest brother are actually a lot alike. I have a twin brother,
I didn't know
but
that.
I'd make a closer twin with my oldest brother than I'd actually do with my actual twin.
That's funny.
And there's a lot of people that say that um, people that are the same or like they have the same attitude or the same mindset or whatever. A lot of times they butt heads because
Hmm.
they want to be. No, I want you to do it my way. But he's got the same idea, but I want it to be my way, not your way, even though it's doing the same thing. And a lot of the people from up here always said that the reason he hated on me for riding bulls was because he knew I was going to be better than him, and he didn't want that to happen.
Yeah.
Uh, but he rode bulls for about a year, and I think he only ever rode a bull for the whole 8 seconds, as his wife would put it, at a practice pen. And they actually did go to a bull ride once, where I was riding at back when. I mean, this was. I think it would have been that first winter that I was riding regular, and I rode the bull good for 6 seconds, and it was in the jackpot. I rode him good for 6 seconds, and then I hung off the side for the last two. And I made the whistle, and I was like 73 points. It was a little calf, and it was just a nut spinner on the left into my hand, and I screwed him up. But I think I ended up pulling last hole money, and I walk over to my brother and his girlfriend at the time, and I had a big shitty grin on my face and was like, "Oh, look at me! I'm a big dude. I got this shit, whatever." And he looks at me and just kind of got this pissed off look at his face, and he's like, "That bull shouldn't even have been in the jackpot. That was no jackpot bull. That was a novice bull. That was just a calf." And I'm like, the calf part has nothing to do with why it's a jackpot or a novice bull. And he's like, "Well, that bull was only like half the size of any of the others. He should have been a novice." I'm like, I mean, I was in the jackpot. I mean, that was the bull I drew in the jackpot, so I'm going to be happy with it. And he goes to the restroom, and his girlfriend looks at me and says, I mean, that was more than he ever did. He never won any money. He only rode a bull once for the full 8 seconds at the practice pen. And I look at her and I'm like, what? And she's got this big shitty grin on her face. So I kind of had that in my back pocket, and I just turned around and walked away. I had a little shitty grin on my face. I'm like, yeah, I'm better than him. But then, like after that, he went to, like, I guess every weekend went after I'd post my videos. When I rode my bulls or whatever. There was some that were close calls. Where I might have come down right at the whistle or whatever, and he had a buddy of his that he was married Amish man at this point.
Hmm.
And he'd have a friend or whatever that would show him the videos or call him and be like, "Oh, well, Marcus wrote another one, this and that." And every week he'd call me and just cuss me. You didn't even make the whistle on this one. You shouldn't have won no money on this one, this and that. Find some stupid excuse on why I shouldn't have won nothing. I'm like, pretty sure the judge just gave me a score, so I don't know why I didn't make the whistle or why I shouldn't have gotten paid. But yeah, it's having a brother or friend there to keep you accountable sure helps you.
Dang right it does. Yeah. especially you get some honest ones like Dakota Eagle Burger, and
Yeah,
he's pretty freaking honest. He'll let you know.
yeah, yeah.
There's a few of them.
Yeah.
Man, well, I know it's freaking late. I'm not sure what time you go to bed, but I'm an early riser myself.
Oh, it's ever since I broke my back, it kind of fluctuates.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's 8 o'clock, sometimes it's 12 o'clock.
Yeah, probably the sleep. Yeah.
Yeah,
With my shoulder, it's probably not as worse, but there for a minute, I had to sleep in my recliner because I couldn't lay on my back. So I just slept in my recliner every night. But
that was one
back,
of
I'm
the
sure
big
it's
things.
harder.
Well, and I had to wear my brace to sleep, and I was supposed to lay on my back to sleep.
Yeah.
So that took a lot to get used to. But
Are you not I'm so used to it now. I'm so used to sleeping on my back now that that's just how I sleep.
no, see, that's the thing is I never really slept on my back before.
Yeah, yeah.
I've
That's a
always
hard
been kind of
adjustment.
yeah. But I mean, the the first no, I would have been in the hospital for basically a day, and before they knew everything on what was what, before I even had a brace on, I couldn't move. I was just laying on a hospital bed, straight, flat. I mean, flat, just stretched out, and that's how I laid for it was about 24 hours straight.
Hmm.
Couldn't get up, couldn't eat, couldn't drink nothing. That's all I could do was just lay stretched out flat on the bed. And I mean, it kind of got to the point where, like, when I sat up, once I got my brace on and was able to sit up some,
Mm-hmm.
where finally I'd lay myself back flat because it was comfortable like that. I had been laying like that for about 24 hours straight, and it felt good. Uh, but yeah, it definitely took some used to getting to at home. Like first week or so, the first week was rough, and I mean, I might start out in the bed and I'd sleep for an hour, and then I'd wake up and
Yep.
I'd have to go walk around for about an hour, and then I might fall back asleep laying on the recliner. And I'd sleep for about an hour, and then I'd get back up and have to go walk around for about an hour, and then I might go to bed or I might go to the recliner. And
Yeah.
it was rough that first week. I got up about every hour, and I was up for about an hour every time. And then about second, third week, it started getting better to, where I'd sleep for maybe 2 hours before I'd have to get up and
Yep.
go walk around, get stretched out. But
And I don't know about you, but the one thing I can't stand is painkillers. I,
no,
dude, I can't stand them. I take as little, if not any, as I possibly can. Like I'll have painkillers just go expired, where they probably
yeah.
don't even work anymore.
And like I've always had a pretty decent pain tolerance to
Yeah.
where I haven't really ever. I mean, I'll take pain medicine every now and then if I
Yeah,
absolutely have. Like
correct.
if I and I wasn't. Tandy had told me had given me ibuprofen and Tylenol to take. He said is if you want me to prescribe you something, I can. But he said, and I didn't take nothing at the hospital besides ibuprofen and Tylenol.
Yeah.
And that normally, I think once a day I took something that was stronger,
Yep.
and that kind of kept everything kind of kicked away and whatever. And
Sure.
hey, if you want me to prescribe you something stronger, I can. But if not, go home and you take Tylenol every so many hours and ibuprofen every so many hours. And I come home and I'm thinking, I'm this big hot shot. I don't need need this ibuprofen. I don't need this Tylenol. It's just, the pain will go away and it'll get better, as the days go on. And I still took them every so often, but I wasn't religious on doing it the times when he said, I didn't do it as close together as what he was saying. And I finally, after about a week, like I was just still straight miserable and it wasn't getting no better. And
Yeah.
I finally called him. I was like, Tandy, I'll come back down there if it helps for you to prescribe me something. Cause I'm like, I got to try something else because these pain pills ain't helping.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He immediately, he's like, well, that's because you're not taking them how you're supposed to. If you take them every hour how you're supposed to, or every 2 hours, I think it was every 2 hours. He's like, if you take them how you're supposed to, they'll help. And they kind of pissed me off. I'm like, telling me I ain't doing what I'm supposed to, and I'm doing everything I can. So I decided, like, I set alarms on my phone, so I know, like,
Yeah.
that goes off, I got to take these pills, and that goes off, I got to take these pills. And I started taking them religiously when I was supposed to. And it took another about a day before it all kicked in. But once I started taking them like that, I ended up I think for like the next week, I took them every like 2 hours. I'd do so many ibuprofen, and then like 2 hours later, I'd have so many Tylenol. And then back to ibuprofen, and then back to Tylenol. Every other 2 hours, I'd have to take the other ones. And like every so often, I'd maybe skip the 2 hour mark and see how it feels. And it was just enough to sometimes it started hurting again.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, we'll give it another day or two, and then we'll see how it is. And I think it took about a week or two before I could slow it down to about every 4 hours. I could take them and I was fine. And then, yeah, just slowly got better, but it was rough. It was definitely the worst pain that I've ever felt in my life.
Man, I imagine the back, because like I've experienced that stuff, with the other surgeries, and generally the first week, you're freaking, like you're saying, you're alternating every 2 hours, ibuprofen, Tylenol. But generally after the first week, it gets better. But heck, anytime you're dealing with a back injury like that, like
Well,
anytime it's a core injury is what it is, and you use your core for
it was
everything.
because it was like with the brace on, like it wasn't like I was even moving my back, but it was all the muscles that were, around that area. Like I'd turn my head to the side to look over here just the wrong way. And a muscle down there would move and it'd make all those muscles go poof. And like there's times when like I was just going on a slow stroll, just to walk around, to move around. And I'd have to watch myself that I'm just looking straight ahead and not moving my legs too fast, because there was times when like my muscles cramped up on, like it just felt like a cramp throughout my whole body, where they did it so fast, like it dropped me in my tracks. It was just like, ugh. And then I'd have to slowly get back up and just try and make sure I don't do it again.
Yeah,
but it was like it was just muscle shit that hurt. But I wouldn't wish it on anybody. I can promise you that.
Man, the body, it's a
I
freaking fascinating
think
deal.
I don't think I hate anybody enough to wish it on anybody. Oh shoot.
Yeah, the only time, like every once in a while I'd have back issues. I remember going to Billings, Montana in 2007. No, it would have been like 2019. I think you were there.
We're probably 19. I think you were there in 19.
In 19, but I've been to Billings 4 times. One of those times, it started off with 45 guys, and then when it came like Sunday, there was only 23 of us that got on.
No, I don't think I made the Billings cut that year because
It was nuts. It was like a freaking war zone. They were just carting
was
people off one after another.
Ryan Miller there that year too.
I don't know. I'm not sure. That's a good question. Mike Lee was. No, Mike wasn't. That would have been beforehand. That's a different.
It might have been 17 or 18 though.
Boudreaux Campbell won a team roping that day with Dakota Lewis. They went they went to some team roping that was right there during the day, and I remember they won it. That's it. But that was
Yeah.
one where my back was so jacked up, and I'm just like, in Banamine, that's what I took. But I was like, okay, and it's the one time I'll say it now. I don't do this, but that was the one time where I went over to Zeke, and I'm like, man, I need something. I can't hardly walk, and so he handed me Fireball, and I probably shouldn't have done that. I was like 7.8 seconds, and I guarantee I would have rode that full if I had not done that. So, but it was like the point where it was like, man, I'm not going to be that guy that drops out. There's already way too many guys that aren't getting on.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that the back stuff, that sucks. And I freaking not even to that extreme. So I could definitely see where you're coming from there.
Yeah. So, what's your thoughts on the two new teams?
So, we don't know much about New York. I'm really curious on like who's going to be the coach and who the GM's going to be and some of that.
Yeah, that much I don't know.
Yeah,
Again.
I don't think they know. With the Oklahoma team, I mean, heck, that's I love it. I love it, and I hope that they build it up. I don't know what their ultimate goal is in 2000, in the year 5, 10, like whether they're going to try to get to a 16-man league or 16-team league or what that looks like. But definitely, I think this is what happens, right? So the more teams you get, the more it actually becomes, building these teams, is it. So if you only have, X amount of guys, right, then everybody's going to have a stacked team or whatever. But when you actually start to add teams, now management actually, like a GM actually has a real job.
Yeah, it comes into play bigger.
It comes into play, and it actually, I think it's exciting. Like when I look at sports, like when I look at football and I look at, baseball, a big part of that is like filling a team together where you're not having just an all-star team. Like every team's not just an all-star team. And I like that. I think that it adds a whole new, level to the sport.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's looking like it's going to be exciting, but I mean, I might hear more if I'd be on the road too.
I don't know what's gonna. I guess my question with it is too. How are they gonna fill these teams? Like, because now you have like all these. You have 8 teams that have had the pick of the litter for the last 2 years, and now you have 2 brand new teams, and like, I feel like they're behind the ball on it.
Well, so each team can only what they call double protect.
Okay.
3 guys.
Oh, okay.
No, you could actually, or normally you could have 7 protected guys.
Okay.
But then from my understanding, I guess anyway, the way it's supposed to work is each team can only what they call double protect 3 guys.
All right.
That the 2 new teams can't touch.
Interesting. I like that. I like that. I think it's good.
It is the 2 new teams get to pick 1 guy off of each of the 8 existing teams. Like they get up to 4 guys. If one team gets a guy off of, say, a team gets the guy off of our team,
yep,
and that's the only guy we're losing.
Okay, I see.
So they could only get 1 guy off of each team.
Okay, so I like that. I was wondering how they were going to do that.
That's how I understand it, but
Yeah,
If it's
right.
true or not, I don't know. I mean, there's people ask me so much stuff, and I'll hear about something, whatever, and kind of feel like I understand it, figured it out, and then when it comes down to it, it's like, huh, that's nothing like I thought it was.
Yeah.
So
I
there's a lot of people that ask me questions about it. I'm like, I don't know. My main job is to ride bulls. That's really all I care about.
yeah.
I let the GMs and the coaches take care of
Yeah.
everything else.
Well, that's where it really becomes, you know, I think for the fan base, and the community, I'm in the future, that's an interesting part because it is one thing that's different within this team concept is that like you're not living in Kansas City.
Right,
And so that'll be interesting, but I think as far as the fan bases are concerned, like as a sports fan, like when I think of the Cardinals, the St. Louis Cardinals, like it is very intriguing for me the whole process of who are they signing, who can they sign and who can't. I know in there's salary caps in like the NFL and stuff.
right.
And
I
some of
think
those complexities I think add the excitement for the fan.
right. And I think that'll come in the future. If this keeps going and keeps getting bigger and better, whatever, and the contracts keep getting better, I
Yeah.
think that will eventually happen to where whatever team on, that's where you're going to be living, or at that coach close to that coach's house or whatever.
Sure.
Might not be in that city, but might be probably be at close to that coach's house.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So
If the
the
money's
where
there,
the
it
whole
makes sense.
where the whole teams are together.
Right. Yeah.
But I could
Yeah.
be wrong.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
I mean,
It's
I think that's a future thing. Look, we can expect perfection right now, but it's not realistic.
yeah,
It's not
yeah,
realistic. Like it doesn't mean that
and
you don't talk about it. It doesn't mean that we as athletes don't talk about trying to be more transparent so that we understand, this is our livelihood, so we understand a little bit of it. But at the same time, you should have some realistic expectation of, okay, they started something brand new and it's going to take time to build up to what, some guys want. And I think that
right,
they're making changes. I mean, heck, look, one change that they've made from year 1 to 2 that I thought was awesome was minimum payments. Like if you're on a team, like you have to be paid X amount. And the first year they didn't have it as much, and then last year they made that a thing. So then there's more guaranteed. And
right,
again, that's progress. That's moving forwards. It's easy to talk about when you're talking about a new sport like this. It's easy to talk about everything that's going wrong, and I think it's important also to look at the things that they're doing that are going in the right direction.
right.
And there's definitely both, but that's just part of it. I mean, that's part of starting something new up.
Yeah, and I mean, in my opinion, just from just my small opinion, I guess. From the first year to the second year, I felt like it improved big time.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it wasn't big things. It was just a lot of small things
Right.
here, small thing there, small thing there. A lot of small things that
They add up.
I felt like they improved, and I felt like overall it made a big improvement.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess I think it's going to be interesting with having two more new teams now this year and seeing where everything's going to go with that.
Yeah, and the New York team's fascinating. Like, okay, Oklahoma, all right. Like, Oklahoma's going to have a team. I'm sorry if you're a fan and like you're upset about this, but Oklahoma's going to have a team. Period. It's like Texas. Texas is going to have a bull riding team. You know, Florida. I thought that's a nice addition because Florida, most of Central Florida is like big, rodeo country, right?
Right,
Elite cattle country, and but the New York, that's cool. And I think it's cool because if you're gonna grow anything, you have to grow it from the outside. I understand, like, some people may be upset about like this whole process of trying to get more outsiders involved, but you're part of the problem if you're not supporting growing the sport, and the only way you grow it is to get people involved that were not part of it before. I wasn't
Yep.
part of it, and it changed
100%.
my life being part of this community, and I love it. I've sweat and blood, and I've prepared myself to die for it, right? Like,
Right.
as and so like we need to continue to try to expand that and bring people in from cultures that have not been part of this. And like the New York,
Right.
I think I'm excited about that just for that fact. Like, I
Yeah.
think that that's a part of the country where bull riding, everybody, like if you go to the East Coast, they sell out every freaking time. Like you go to Texas
Right.
and they may not sell out, but you go to freaking New York, they are going to sell out. You go to freaking Maine, they're going to sell out. Connecticut, they're going to sell out this year. you know?
Yeah.
So I think having a team there that could actually, be another way to maybe get some more guys coming in.
Yep. Yep. It definitely could. And if you're a fan, I hope you guys are smart enough to not be cheering for the new Oklahoma team because Kansas City Chiefs are the way to go. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you guys were probably excited. You're like, yeah, finally, Oklahoma's going to Florida. we we pushed them to a whole different state, and now they're coming up with another team. Where are they going to go next?
Yeah, we actually kind of suspected that deal coming already before because the owners of the Oklahoma Freedom comes from Florida, and he
Makes
was
sense.
wanting to move that team to Florida.
Okay.
And
That
then when the whole deal come up with the two new teams, it was just the perfect opportunity for them to move to Florida instead of being in Oklahoma.
Now the owner for the new Oklahoma team, he's Taylor Gooch, professional golfer. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I didn't hear who the new
Yep.
owner is.
Yep. Taylor Gooch. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Yeah, he's still like he's playing right now. Like that's kind of cool. That is kind
Right.
of cool. Like it's just funny. That's a different. I didn't see that coming so much. But the New York. So I don't know who it is, but the owners of New York are a group of athletes. So there's a bunch of athletes that are going to own New York too. So that's kind of
Yeah.
intriguing that both of these new teams are ownerships coming from athletes outside of, this industry, and that's kind of cool.
Right. Right.
But I don't know all the details of the New York. I just know that it's a group of athletes that are, part of whatever on the ownership. I don't know if they're going to have a face like an owner or if
Right.
it's just going to be a group, how that works. But
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just waiting. I mean, there's people months ago asked me already, who's the two new teams going to be? I don't know.
no, no.
PBR just now released the one of the new teams and
Yeah.
who the head coach is for that. So
And now this is my question. Is JB like for their training? Is it just going to be like smoke Marlboros and drink beer on a medicine ball? It has to be on a medicine ball or it's not bull riding training.
that I cannot tell you, but I hope I don't have to know. Dude.
Oh,
I'd hopefully I get to stay on the team I am on. So
yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
as long as we can keep it that way. And I don't know how his training's going to have to be. I really don't care what his training consists of.
I'll tell you what, if you get on that team, you better have a winning mindset because I don't think he's
I was
going
going
to
to say,
accept anything
in all
less.
honesty, probably won't be a whole lot of training involved as long as you got a mentality to hang on,
Yeah.
never quit, say no.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I guess we'll see. Just wait and twiddle the thumbs and see what happens.
You know what's funny? So I don't outside of I think Brady Sims, I brought up the teams. It was fresh, right? When all that was going down. So me and Brady talked about it, but almost every podcast I'm on, whether I bring it up or not, somebody brings up the teams, and I've had both sides of the spectrum. I've had the people
Yeah.
that are all for it, and I have the people that are, calling people out.
Let
And
me guess. Brady Sims was one of the ones that called people out on it.
actually, Brady was pretty. He was pretty
I figured
logical.
Brady probably wouldn't like this.
He wasn't against it, to be honest. He wasn't in our podcast. Heck, outside of it, I know Bonner's not a huge fan. Um, Brady,
Brady, if for some reason you're listening, I'm just doing this to poke a little fun at you.
Okay, so here's the thing: Brady had been drinking, but heck, he was drinking on the podcast. But I think he was still hot out. He hadn't been drinking quite enough. So you
Yeah.
probably got partial opinions. We didn't get the
Right.
full bore. I need to get
Right.
Brady Sims and Klein Hall, and just let them sit there. And
Oh boy.
that would be a
That
podcast right there.
that, that could be bad.
That would
Honestly.
be bad. That would.
Oh
Yeah, that would be definitely one to save.
yeah. Yeah. That'd be an exciting one for sure.
I think people are more open to this concept if they're fans of other sports, and
Yeah.
Brady, the diehard Kansas City Chiefs fan. And so I think anybody that has some level of understanding of other sports is probably gonna understand a little bit more. Whereas if you don't watch other sports and you rodeo all the way, I could see how that could be a big freaking, challenge to your
Right.
opinion, your bias.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. It'll be exciting to see where it goes, in the next few years.
Right. Right.
But all right, man. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a lot of
Hey,
fun.
got it. Sorry, it's taking me so long to get it done.
Hey, no, it's no big deal. I'll just keep rolling through. You have a bunch of different people on, so
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. I appreciate it.
yep.